and welcome to another edition of the Ripple Effect podcast. Thanks to Solidarity Community Federal Credit Union. My name is Jessica Ausbrook, and we have a very special guest with us today from the Grissom Air Museum. Tom Jennings is here. Hello.
How you doing?
I'm good. Happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
So the Grissom Air Museum, sometimes I think for folks who aren't familiar with the area, they don't realize this gem is right there at the base.
That's true. We have a lot of people that will pass the museum, see the planes in the air park, turn around to investigate what is it that you have there, and then they're surprised to see a museum. So it's fantastic.
And it's a big museum, indoor, outdoor.
It is indoor, outdoor. It's a 10,000 square foot indoor, but we have 29 airplanes in the air park. So it's really cool to check them out. And it's a wide range of airplanes.
Okay, so let's talk about the planes that folks can come up and see. Like, what do you feel like is the biggest draw? Which one are people like, I got to see this one?
There's a few of them. A-10 is one because they're currently in service still. And so people all have stories over them. The 135s, because they're so big.
And they're at Grissom, right?
They are. They fly out there. And what's interesting is when people are in the air park and Grissom is doing the touch and goes across the street, it's like they see the plane, they see up in the air, and then there's like, wow, that's so cool.
The first time I ever saw it when I moved here, it was like this massive aircraft came out of the middle of a cornfield.
Yep.
It was incredible. It really was.
It is. Well, when you talk about cornfield, when it was World War II and the Naval Air Station was there, it was nicknamed USS Cornfield.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
And then it was named after the astronaut, Gus Grissom, right?
Yep. Well, it went from Bunker Hill.
That's right.
And Naval Air Station. And then in 54, it started the Air Force. And then in 94, it reverted to went to the reserves. But in 68, they named it Grissom.
Okay.
After
That's cool. Okay. So what called you to work at the Grissom Air Museum?
My funny answer is the chairman of the board. But no, they had an opening for a new executive director. The former one was retiring. So I applied, and I was the first museum professional that they've ever interviewed.
Okay, so you come from a museum background.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes. I come from quite a bit of background.
Okay.
A zoo.
Okay.
I have Henry Ford Museum, Greenfield Village, the State Museum and Historic Sites. And so coming to Grissom was kind of a natural fit.
So all around Indiana, those other ones.
Pretty much.
I like that. That's very cool. So what exciting things are happening at the Air Museum?
Well, we're getting ready for the new season. We'll open up March 13th for the season. We're putting in Indiana stories, talking about folks that served on the base. So we're picking out different individuals, and that'll be a permanent exhibit every year. It's just going to rotate different people, tell their stories. We have a new expanded Grissom exhibit. Since Gus is our namesake, and while we're not a NASA, in our mission, but because of our namesake, we can go there. And so we're kind of telling more of it. And we have a school that had donated a Mercury 7 capsule, and it's all made out of styrofoam, but it's got electronics in it. It's got a monitor. It's got several fun things to do with it.
Great.
And so we're putting that on display, and we can use that as part of his story. We talk about some of the B-58 pilots and crew members that have passed in accidents or broken arrows. And
what's a broken arrow?
Well, that is back in 64 when one of the B-58s had an accident on the runway. One person was killed, Captain Rocky Cervantes, but it was one that it was a very bad accident and had involved nuclear weapons on board. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move past the broken arrow.
Yep. So we got that.
Mm-hmm. All right, sorry, kind of go down a little bit. Okay, so back to the exciting museum.
Sure.
So upcoming events, you're getting into spring, new exhibits. Is there anybody we know that you might be featuring? Can you give us a little sneak peek?
Well, we're bringing back General Kepner, who was kind of a hometown hero, born and raised about a mile south of the base.
Really?
Yes. And he ran away from home at 17, joined the Marines. And it goes into the story that he started out as a Marine, enlisted, retired as a 3-star Air Force General.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it talks about his story and all the things that he had. So that's pretty good. We're also kind of focusing on some of the veterans that started the museum. That's kind of important. A lot of them were, it just kind of started with, we have these aircraft. We like them. We don't want them to go to the boneyard. We don't want them to be destroyed. So let's start a museum. And that's how it got started with 7 individuals.
Wow. When?
This was in 1981 is when they were incorporated.
1981.
Yeah.
And where are these aircrafts coming from? How did they get there?
Some flew in. But
Okay, I was going to ask, do they ever fly in, or are they?
it's kind of cheaper if they fly in for us.
I bet it is.
But we get some loans from the Air Force Museum in Dayton.
Okay.
We also get some from the Naval Air Station down in Pensacola. We have a couple of them that were just outright donated. We have a MiG-23 that was donated to us. It was down in Amarillo, Texas. And so we shipped it up, put it back together, painted it up, and
Okay, what kind of airplane is that? Is it like a military one? Is it?
it's a military one. It's a Russian built, but it is from the Bulgarian Air Force.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's not one that I would have normally gone after to acquire. But it further tells the Cold War story, and we do talk a lot about the Cold War. So it's one of those things that it fit the mission and fit the story. So we brought it in, and it's been very well received.
Okay, what's your favorite aircraft?
Oh my gosh, I love the A-10. F-14 is a great one. But we have a B-25 that is Passionate Paulette, which is a very cool World War II aircraft. It's very tight. I can't fit in all the spaces, but these guys weren't very big back
It had to be like little jockeys, right?
They did. I mean,
Bring all the peanuts over here. They're going to go in the small planes.
exactly. But it's really interesting. And that aircraft was actually in the original Catch-22 movie.
Really?
Yeah. So
Very cool. Does it tell us about that at the museum?
it does. You got to read the label out near the aircraft, but yes, it does talk about it.
So walk us through the museum. If someone wants to come, are you giving tours? Is it a virtual tour? How does that work?
Besides myself, we have a lot of docents that will do tours. Most of them are veterans. Some of them are private pilots. So they have the knowledge and the experience to be able to take you through. A lot of our older veterans that were in the military, Air Force base across the street, have been requested quite a bit for tours. Yeah, it is very neat because they're getting something a little bit more than what you expect on a tour.
Well, and I think we get lucky. Kokomo gets lucky because we get a lot of the really great people from Grissom. They don't want to leave, so we get to keep them.
I know. And a lot of them have been there for years. It's like you talk to some veterans and I was here for 6 years, here for 2, here for 1, so forth and so on. They went through 5, 6, 7 different bases. Some of the ones that went to Grissom kind of stayed there for a while or had come back after going to different places. So it's really kind of cool. And again, the history and the knowledge they have is just phenomenal.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. So you mentioned the volunteers. You're always looking for volunteers, correct?
We're always looking for volunteers. We just on a daily basis, to engage our visitors that come to the museum, it's good to have someone that can kind of walk them through the experience, what they're going to see on the inside, talk a little bit about being on the outside, but also just to kind of help them out with different, events or different programs or whatnot. It's always good to have extra volunteers.
Now you had, am I right? There was a Tuskegee Airman.
Yeah. Yes, we did have a Tuskegee Airman. It just left. It's in Kokomo right now. And I want to say in the next couple of weeks, it's going to go to St. Louis, I believe it is. That traveling exhibit is a very cool exhibit. And it talks about the 5 individuals that were born and raised in Kokomo. And it's just an incredible story, and it talks about some of the happenings down in Freeman Field, down near Seymour, Indiana. But the way I understand this exhibit, it's going to go around to different communities and it's going to talk about those that served as Tuskegee Airmen from that community. So it's got a lot of roots.
So can we learn more about the Tuskegee Airmen if we come up to the museum?
Yes, we still talk about it. It's not something that the Tuskegee Airmen served on base per se. However, there are a couple stories that are significant. We have a gentleman that we're going to kind of focus on this year. His name is Henderson Smith III. He was not a Tuskegee Airman, but he was mentored by a Tuskegee Airman. And when he got his lieutenant colonel pins, a Tuskegee Airman pinned him.
You shouldn't have told me that. Now I'm like, woo!
So it's very cool.
What a beautiful story.
Oh, I know. The stories are just incredible.
Okay, so tell us more. Tell us more stories. You're a great storyteller, obviously.
Well, thank you. Some of the things that we talk about are some of the pilots that have flown different missions. Some have died. There's one exhibit, Dick Blakesley's exhibit. His accident was in McKinney, Kentucky, and the plane just obliterated. I mean, the biggest pieces were probably 7 or 8 inches long. They were engine parts. And when they found it, they identified it as they found a wallet that was smoldering. Okay. It was in his chest pocket, and, obviously it just blew out. But they found a picture in that of Mrs. Blakesley, and that's how they identified the people in the aircraft.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, that is quite the story.
Yeah. And with that, there are a couple of pieces that we don't talk about in the label, but there's a couple pieces of the plane that have a date and a time. And it was found by a young man who was probably 14 or 15 at the time. And several years later, he presented those 2 pieces to Dick Blakely's son. And he asked me, he said, "Why do you have the date and the times on that?" He says, "Well, in my age, that's the first time I experienced death. And so I felt it was important, and I always remember that." So it's very compelling story.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I imagine there are lots of stories like that.
There is. And those are the kind of things that we like to talk about. The objects are cool. Don't get me wrong. They're just phenomenal. But it's that personal connection in that story. I think that tells a lot about what's going on.
Well,
and it also prompts people to think about, well, I remember my dad being in the military, or my uncle or brother or whatnot. And sometimes you get they never talk about it.
Yeah, a lot never talk about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty cool.
It is. It sounds, I've never actually been inside the museum, if you can believe that. I feel a little ashamed to say that.
Oh my God.
I've been to the base a million times, but.
Gotta have you up there.
Okay. I'm going to go up there. We'll have to make a plan for that for sure. So if folks are interested in checking out the museum and seeing what you have to offer, tell us a little bit about how we find you, your hours, when you're open.
Okay. To find us, you can go on GrissomAirMuseum.com, our website. We also have a Facebook that if you go to the website, you can also get a link to the Facebook page as well. At the museum, our hours are going to be, we open up March 13th, and that's going to be a Thursday. So we'll run Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 10 to 4 until May 1st. And then we're open 7 days a week through Labor Day. And then we go back to the Thursday through Sunday, 10 to 4. We're going to look at having some extended hours during the summer. We're working on the details of that, but we'll have those hours on our website, and we'll also put it on Facebook. To get to us, you can call us. Our phone number is right on their website as well, and the Facebook. You can check in for memberships. You can check in for more details about events, activities, and things of that nature. Our calendar of events is on our website. Big one we got coming up is going to be our car show.
Ooh, when's that?
It's going to be the first Saturday in August, and I think it's August 2nd.
All right. Very first car show.
Yeah, well, that'll be the first one for this year, yes, for us.
Okay, so tell us about that. We get signed up already, or are we waiting for a little bit?
Waiting for a little bit. We're going to get the information out there in the enrollment forms, but it's basically $20 a car to bring it in, and you park in the air park. So it's kind of like first come, first served to the aircraft you want to park next to. But yes, you'll be able to park in the air park, park near the planes, and it's just a really cool event. We can do, anywhere from 285 to 300 cars, sometimes more. We've had it in the past, but it's just a very cool event. We have food trucks, we have different activities going on there, activities for kids, and you can also see the museum, and it's one price for everything.
That's great. That's really great.
It is.
Busy things, lots of stuff happening at the Grissom Air Museum. And for folks who are watching, why don't you give us like one more story if you've got one? If you can just think of it, another one off the top of your head.
Well, talking about General Kepner, one of the things that was kind of fascinating in 1934, he was commissioned by National Geographic and the Army Air Corps to see what the stratosphere was like. So they developed this gondola, if you will, or balloon, and the gondola detached to go up, see what it was like. And at 1934, they went up 61,000 feet. It's the first time they ever seen the curvature of the Earth at that time. Yes. And when they got to 61,000 feet, the balloon started to separate. It wasn't sewn, it was kind of glued. And as it came back down, they've all survived. Kepner and one of his co-pilots jumped about 500 feet above Earth, which is kind of close, but they all survived.
Oh, they
Yes.
had their parachutes
They
on.
had their parachutes,
Smart of
yes.
them.
But it took a while getting the third guy out because his straps got stuck in the hatch.
That's frightening.
So the cover of the picture for National Geographic's for that year had Kepner on top of the gondola. The third co-pilot was stuck in the hatch, and Kepner's kind of kicking him in the chest to free him up. They did free him up, and then they both jumped, and again, everybody made it. But there's an audio that we're trying to clean up because it's not very good. But it's interesting listening to Kepner. He's like, oh, yeah, that's what we did back then. Yeah, we knew we were probably going to die, but, we're okay. We're
young.
We're all good. It's like, it's pretty guts.
Yeah,
pretty gutsy.
It definitely is. Definitely is. Tom, if anybody wants to learn more about the Grissom Air Museum, best way to find you, I think just come see you.
Yes, I agree with you. Just come see us. Again, we'll be open on those days that I mentioned before, Thursday through Sunday, 10 to 4. And it's a great experience. You can check in with the staff at the ticket counter or any of the volunteers. If you're interested in volunteering, we can get you the information for that as well. Get you started, get you trained. Hopefully, we can pick up some volunteers and docents for that. We can kind of cover everything that we use our folks for. Donating to the museum is the same way. You can go on our website, select support the museum and donate. You can do it in person. And again, if you have items from family members that were part of the Air Force or the military, we're particularly looking for objects from the 434th.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, we because they're currently there. They've been in that location a little bit longer than the 305th have actually had it. But we're trying to tell more of their story, and because a lot of them are still active or in the recently retired.
Oh, and I think sometimes people forget that we have an air refueling wing just up the road.
I know we get a lot of people that will say, well, so what are they doing with the runway now that it's closed? It's like, no, they're still open.
It's still open. Yeah. And businesses use it every once in a while too, I think.
They do. They do. So it's a great, use of the space. And again, great stories, great opportunities. And we like to share that.
And so head on up to the Grissom Air Museum to check out more. Tom, thanks so much for joining us today.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
You betcha. That's been the Ripple Effect for today. Thanks to Solidarity Community Federal Credit Union. We'll see you next time.